let's jump into Frunk Beats. Frunk Beats. And that's our next one up here. Yeah, just gonna stop there. A couple things. So yeah, so a couple things I noticed. We have that kick going to the reverb. I thought I'll get to that in a second. I think the main thing is because he's asking specific questions here. Hey, let me know where to focus on my production process. Do the sounds work well together, or do I have to take care of elements or sounds? So technically, everything you did was fine. It's okay. Now, the distance between someone starting in the amateur production to mature level production is the ear training to identify why these sounds why does one sound weaker in the blend of all the elements that I'm using than other sounds. Notice that the piano is really the culprit here. The piano just comes off as uh, very thin, very lifeless, and it's okay to use stock piano. So you can say, well, it's the only piano I can afford. It's the stock piano. It doesn't sound that great, but there's so many things you can do with stock instruments that can really give them life when you create the right acoustic and sonic environment that they can sit in. That really helps the other elements around it, spotlight that. So right now the piano is naked, it was up front, it was cold, and it just felt thin and small, and it gives that amateur type of vibe. And so that's something that, I'm like, okay, this is someone just starting off with making beats, because it's a clear indication of someone who's not yet developed the maturity with their ears to identify, yeah, I don't know why the piano sounds weird or something. So yeah, either go through different patches or identify ways that you can create space with the piano and the bass. The bass just sounded off in comparison to that. So I don't know if you wanted to chime in, Frank.
Yeah, just back to kind of some piggybacking off what you were talking about. Some of the sound choices, like if I was mixing, like if you send me that record to mix, I'd do a lot to that snare so it wouldn't sound so like, psh, like it sounds like small in comparison. And later on, when it goes like it kind of sped up and the kick was doing like some little double time stuff, where it kind of gave it a little bit of drum and bassy kind of feel. That snare sound kind of makes sense, but it also needs something behind it that's like a little bit denser to kind of hold the space because there's nothing like unless you're gonna have somebody sing, there's nothing holding that like that middle space of like the middle frequencies or the lower middle ones. So it makes the record feel empty and like kind of what Ivan is alluding to is there's like this hollowness. Um, and if there's anything to kind of I guess inspire you guys who are using stock sounds, I have a really good friend of mine who was recently writing with Pharrell, and he said, "If I told you what Pharrell does to his drums, you'd be really upset." And I was like, "Okay, I'm ready to be upset." And he goes, "He just uses all the sounds from Logic, and then he just like EQs them in the computer." So, you know, and who's gonna tell that guy no? Like, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's like,
Yeah,
so
Pharrell, that's wrong. Pharrell, no. You need to go on Splice and get these things going. So, yeah, I'm a big pusher of stock stuff. It's just Pharrell's got the ear to know, no, this is what I need to do to make it fit with everything else I've got going on. It's context, really. If you load up a stock piano sound on its own, you have nothing else in the balance or the mix to reference it to. So the stock piano sound is going to sound fine. Put a stock piano sound next to a already mastered and limited and squashed loop, then that guy seems a little bit off. Does that make sense in the chat? You're right. So it's identifying like who's the weak link here and having it fit. So that Pharrell, man, he's got to get on it. He should join Beat Academy. to get to step his drum game up.
I'll let him know. I'll send him the link.
uh, he was completely working with him on the Jared Evan project. I was like, I mean, the first time working with him, I know I'm gonna go on a tangent here, but I was like, yo, Pharrell's coming in. I was expecting like, but he just came in, sat on the couch, and was like, such a fan of music, such a fan of like the music making process.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what plugin is that? What do you use? Like, Pharrell, you asking me what plugin I'm using? Or, sure, or whatever. This is what I'm using. So